idea was it to put me on stage after Krishna. Like, really, all I could do was my best Elaine Bennis from Seinfeld. Like, white girl cannot dance, cannot sing, but I got the power. I got the power. I'm so excited to be here today, whether I can sing and dance or not, because I have to admit, there was a time in my career where I shunned this woman's nonsense stuff, right? What you didn't hear in my bio is that where I worked was pale and stale. Sorry to the two guys in the room. I worked with a bunch of old dudes in dairy. I was the only female in the room for most of my career. When I got to the C-suite, and I started as an intern, when I got to the C-suite, I was the only chick there. I didn't consider myself a female executive in a male-dominated organization or industry. I considered myself one of the guys. And when we started to get a little bit smarter about we need places and spaces for women, my CEO would say, Monica, I want you to go to that Ag for Women's conference. I'm like, no, don't send me. I want you to start a women's group, an ERG, Employee Resource Group for Women. We'd have people who would come in from large organizations, Starbucks, Nestle, and they would say, we had a women's group and we loved it. We would do lunch once a month. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I went to the big conference once a year and they'd have a women's reception that would happen about the time that the main room was kind of being let out. The guys were going to the bar and we were going to a women's reception. I wanted to be in the bar with the men talking business. On Friday, they'd have a track for women at the same time that the golf tournament was happening. You want to learn about somebody personally and professionally? Spend 4 to 5 hours in a golf cart with them. I wanted to be there. I didn't get it. I get it now. The universe has put me in this place and space where I'm a women's empowerment speaker. I understand the importance of collaborating, commiserating, and celebrating with each other. We've heard from amazing women today. Some of the words we heard: resilient, stamina. God, Patty, I love that. I needed that about 3 years ago, and I was like, I am out. Full-on menopausal moment. I'm like, peace out, 80-hour weeks, you can have them. One of the words I want to make sure you heard, and I want to put a bow on today's program by making sure you leave with this, is we heard from women who understood that they have power and they own it. They don't just give it away. If I do nothing else for you, I know I'm looking at a sea of accomplished women. Some are starting their journeys, some are rewriting their stories, some are at the end of their journeys. Some, like Stacy and I, don't care what we look like. 26 shots of Botox right here. Maybe I care a little. And yes, I will be updating my photo next week. Another menopausal moment. Just cut it off. Cut off that ponytail. I don't need it. I don't want it. I so miss it. Power. You have power. The title of my presentation, Build Your Own Table, is not about me handing you a hammer and nails and wood, right? No, silly. It's about you understanding that you have the power. I learned in the C-suite in a male-dominated industry and a male-dominated organization. I have scars, I have a toolkit, I have experience, I have stories that would make people blush. But I learned that I have the power. I need not look to my male colleagues or my employer for my advancement or my opportunities. I need to look in the mirror. And to all of you, women helping women, strong women support women. Look in the, you have mirrors in front of you. I could not have planned this better. You have mirrors in front of you. Look in the mirror because you have the power. I moved to Kansas City in 2006. I was convinced that people actually live in that place where the Wizard of Oz takes place, and so they picked me up from New York and brought me out to Kansas City with my family. I was helping the turnaround of DFA. The hours were long. The work was insane. I wasn't qualified for most of it. About 10 o'clock at night, I'd either be passing through an airport and grabbing a Coney, or I would be in Kansas City going home and grabbing leftover. If you're in Kansas City and you're a newbie, what do you think I grabbed? Boulevard beer and barbecue, right? 6 months into Boulevard beer and barbecue, I look like an Oompa. I am 30 pounds heavier. Crushing it at work, not kind of killing it at home, killing myself. So I got a trainer. I'm like, I need to do something because, and you heard this from a couple of people today, you need to be mentally and physically okay, complete, healthy. And I wasn't, truly wasn't. So I got a trainer, and the trainer thought, we're gonna do some weights. You've all heard about the benefits of weights, but we're also gonna do some cardio. And the cardio I want you to do, Monica, is to run. Now, back then, if you saw me running, I was usually being chased by something. It wasn't something that I just chose to do. My knees today are telling me I probably shouldn't have done it. But so I would run. There was a guy that was an avid runner that I worked with, and he would run around the office complex with me at lunch hour. And when we were on the road, if he was with me, he didn't want me running in the back streets of Philly or Washington, D.C. by myself, so he would run with me at 5 o'clock in the morning. I was committed. I was dedicated to this. We'd get going, and I'd start out strong. And then I'd hear him go, 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 go. I'm like, what are you doing? It's 5 o'clock in the morning. I do not want to be here. What are you doing? He's like, go. Come on, go. And I finally said to him, why do you keep saying go? I'm going as fast as I effing can. And he would say, you're mentally losing it. You need to check in with yourself. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to check in with ourselves. Because some of you have given away your power to everybody. Some of you have lost sight of what your plan was, that goal that we heard Krishna talk about, that's here, but maybe not here right now. I know you're going to work and you're crushing it, you're going home, you're picking kids up from daycare, you're getting them to soccer practice, you're going home, you're doing dinner. After dinner, you're doing homework. After homework, you're putting them to bed, and then you're doing laundry. And then one of the kids remembers at 10 o'clock at night, I need a poster board for a project I have tomorrow. How many times does that happen, right? If I could give that child away, I probably would have. And then you're back on your computer and you're looking at whatever's going on in the morning because you want to be prepared because you're good. But you've not checked in with yourself. You are just on muscle memory, right? So I want to remind you that everything is within your power and your power is within you. And if you have to physically look in the mirror sometimes and say that to yourself, please do. Anybody know the name Sarah Blakely? Yeah. Only a few of you woo-hooed. For those of you who don't know, I'm going to give you a clue. You ever tuck a body part into something called Spanx? Yeah, there's not anybody, well, maybe there's somebody, but there's not anybody in this room that's female that hasn't tucked a body part into a tuck me, suck me is what I call them. Sarah Blakely was the founder of Spanx. Now, not because she was qualified, not because she had a degree in fabrics or she understood manufacturing. No, she was a woman who was selling copy machines, who was going out one night in a pair of white pants and thought, I've had too much barbecue. I need to flatten that. And she looked around and found a pair of control top pantyhose, cut it off at the foot, and used that to be the smoothing thing behind her bum or on her bum. She thought, I have something here. Necessity, the mother of invention, right? I have something here. I think I'm going to do this. And so she set out to start Spanx, and she was met with resistance in the beginning. But this is not the Sarah Blakely story I want to share with you today. The Sarah Blakely story that I want to share with you today, for point of putting a bow on this program, is when Sarah was little, her father did this thing about once a week, in which he would ask the family, what failures have you had today? What failures have you had this week? When Sarah was little, the failure might look something like this. She wasn't tall enough to reach the goofy hand on the Disney ride, so she couldn't ride it. Well, that's an easy one. Just wait a year or two and you'll be tall enough. As she got older, her failures looked more like, I bombed the LSATs. What her father did by doing this exercise with his family is he reframed what failure was. And actually, in the Blakely household, failure was not failing. Failure was not failing, because if you weren't failing at something, you weren't trying. Krishna, failure led you to what? Success. So failure was not failing. And he reframed failure was celebrated. It was something you did. It wasn't the end to what your goal was. It was just like a little hump in the road. Outside of being a women's empowerment speaker, I speak to organizations about challenger mindset, about meeting constraints and resistance with a mindset that allows you to transform yourself and your business. That's what Sarah Blakely's father was doing when he was forcing kids to go through this, what was your failure this week? There was a point in my life where I watched a movie, I can't even remember the name of the movie, but my children were probably 6 and 12 years old at the time. They're now 26 and 32, if that math worked out. Don't tell them if I don't know their ages right now. And in this movie, they would do, what were your highs around the dinner table and what were your lows? And I would do that with my kids and they would always groan. And their highs were like not having a snow day at school. Their lows were having to do the highs and lows for mom. My kids are little shits. Everything is within your power, and your power is within you. And if you are not owning and using your power, you are failing in not the way that the Blakeleys would approve of. What prevents us from going for it often is these things that we hold true, right? I like to call this myth busters. They're myths. My daughter was beautiful and smart and talented in high school. When she was a baby, she was beautiful, and I wouldn't let anybody tell her that because I didn't want her to grow up thinking she was beautiful because smart was more important. When she was about 23, she said, I am so glad that I am smart and beautiful. I'm like, okay, that backfired on me. But she is. But when she was in high school, thank you, social media, she didn't think she was smart. She didn't think she was pretty. She didn't think she was talented. She went to States for Pembroke every year for cross country. I'm like, why do you not? You make it to States. Of course you're fast. Why do you not think that you're not talented in running? Why do you think you have a 4.2 GPA? Go talk to your 2.3 GPA brother. You are smart. Who works at Community America, by the way, right now. Thank you for hiring him. He is a hard worker. And he has a different last name. It's myth busting. Sometimes we think we're not smart enough or not good enough. Like, I don't know, if I work hard, I'll get noticed. They'll notice me. They'll recognize this hard work and they'll promote me, right? Maybe, maybe not. My favorite, and one we hear all the time, is I'm not qualified. We heard this earlier. I think you used the statistics of 70%. Oh no, I'm conflating things. I'm gonna use that one later. Men at 60%, they go through a job application. If they're 60% of the way there, I'm gonna throw it in. I'm gonna go for this job. Women, yeah, I can do that. Nope. Ooh, and we don't apply. Recruiters are now rewriting job descriptions because they're trying to get us to apply at 60%. I'm the CEO of the American Cider Association. I got a little bored, I stepped into a CEO gig, interim 1 year. When I looked at that job description, I'm like, I don't have a PhD in fermentation, but that's not gonna stop me. And I went to the interview, I said all the wrong things. I got the second interview, said all the wrong things. I got the third interview, I'm like, why the hell are you hiring me? I am not qualified. I didn't let it stop me. I put my dude hat on, and I'm now the CEO of the American Cider Association for all cideries across the country. Lesson here is be a dude. No, just kidding. 372. The conference room at DFA was called 372, the CEO Executive Conference Room, 372. I would watch this time and again. One of my many titles at DFA was Chief of Staff. So CEO would come into town every couple of weeks, and he'd have a meeting with the senior team. 372 had this long conference table with about 10 seats around it. If you were pulling all of us senior folks together, there were about 14 of us, so there were some seats in the periphery. I would watch this time and again, and it would flip me out. 1 o'clock, I'm sitting there waiting for the CEO to come in. Andy comes in, sits at the table. Doug comes in, sits at the table. Scott comes in, sits at the table. Chrissy comes in, she sits in the periphery. Behind her comes Jackie. Jackie sits next to Chrissy in the periphery, and the chair's along the wall. Patrick comes in, he sits at the table. Kevin comes in, sits at the table. It's like, was there an asterisk next to your name? You're invited to the meeting, but since you're a chick, you should go sit at the table because your voice is not needed. Go sit in the periphery because your voice is not needed at the table. What are we doing? Own your power. Own your presence. Christy reported to me. She was super smart. She's got my job now. She was super talented, but the way in which she showed up in the bigger organization, people didn't see her worth because she didn't own her power. You gotta know what you want. Today we're gonna do this little exercise. You're gonna own your power, you're gonna stop giving it away. You had this plan. When I started out in the work world, my plan was just to make money. My parents were 8th grade educated, we were poor. I didn't go without, but I didn't really have anything. I was told, you're just supposed to get married and have kids, you're not gonna go to college. I was like, watch me now. I was kind of wired that way. Went to college, I got a job. I didn't know the opportunities that would be presented to me. I just wanted to get a job so that I could feed myself and my eventual family. Once I got there, my plan kind of changed. So your plan can change, but where you are today, what do you want? You want another title? You want a promotion? You want a voice? Do you want less? Do you want less work? A more work-life balance? Because we're in a room filled with people who are professionals. I'm assuming something that you want is in the professional realm. I want you to write it down. And some of you are on the pathway. You're already working against this plan. Pull out your phone, put it in your notes, write it on your inner thigh. I don't care where you write it on the tablecloth. Write it down. This shouldn't be hard. I wanted to get a master's degree. I got myself through college, waiting tables 7 nights a week. My math professor, my son does not take after my math ability, Community America. My math professor would come into the restaurant where I worked and I served him up a lot of drinks for free and I passed his class with a C+. Never got more than an F on any one of those math assignments, but I passed his class. What do you want? I wanted to get a master's degree. I remember that. I got married, I had a job, I wanted a master's degree, I had a child. I didn't have time for a master's degree. I was going to do it later. I had a second child. I had a promotion. I was seemingly successful because I was scrappy and I worked hard. Kind of didn't need a master's, but I kind of wanted a master's degree. I'm 56 years old in my second chapter of work. I don't have a master's degree. I'm not getting a master's. Like, I lost that. I didn't write that down on my thigh. What do you want? Yogi Berra, not Yogi Bear, Yogi Berra, I have a little bit of a Long Island accent, would say that if you don't know where you're going, it doesn't matter what road you're on. I would say if you don't know where you're starting, you don't know how to pack the car. Where are you starting? I like to do this little thing called the leadership spectrum. There's not a right side and a wrong side on here. My husband is an introvert. I'm an extrovert, in case you didn't know that. He once bought me and my daughter a book titled Quiet. Do you know the book Quiet? The book Quiet is about how introverts rule the world, but they don't need the recognition and they're not loud, so nobody really knows, but they're secretly ruling. I didn't get past the forward in this book without being insulted and putting it down. My daughter traveled around the country at the time. She was in college with the book in her suitcase, and finally, after a year of not reading it, she just put it down. Are you waiting for, are you asking for? Are you supporting, are you leading? Are you staying quiet, are you speaking up? Are you silent or collaborative? Are you responding or initiating? Again, there's not a right or wrong. It's just a real for you, right? If speaking up is where you're at and it's not working for you, you might want to rethink how you're going about things. And I share this with you because I want you to layer it on something else. And we'll get to that. Commit to it. What you wrote down, I want you to commit to. 70%. I was so ahead of myself. If you think it's, is it 40% maybe? Act on it? 43? And if you write it down, 76. I'm not good with numbers. I already told 76. So I want you to commit to it. You've written it down, and now I want you to tell somebody. This is the accountability piece. Krishna was daring and told all of you, turn to somebody at your table, pick up your phone, text your spouse, text your best friend, text your mother, text your mentor. I don't care. Text me. Ready? 816-844-5989. That was not 8675309. That was 816-844-5989. Text me. I'll hold you accountable. Commit to it. Because if you don't plan it, write it down, and commit to it, it doesn't happen. This is roadside. Is it coming? It's not coming. I don't know. Words are missing here. This is my AAA plan. This is roadside assistance for what you just wrote down. I want you to assess where you're at. I do a presentation on success skills. You can have technical skills that'll get you the job, but if you don't have success skills, soft skills, you're not going to elevate. You're not going to be advancing in your career. So assess where you're at. What are your gaps? Then alter. Get to work on filling those gaps. And then act on it. Don't wait for somebody to see that you've done the work. There's somebody in this room that was at a meeting that I was at 2 years ago. Meeting Professionals International meeting. And she came up to me after and she said, do you do coaching? That was great. Do you do coaching? I'm like, no, I'm a sucky coach. You do not want me to coach you. But I will spend time with you and figure out if I can help you with whatever it is that ails you. And what was ailing this woman was that she was in a job that she liked, but there was an opportunity to step into the manager's role. That person was leaving. She was being encouraged to throw her hat in the ring. She wasn't sure if she was ready. She thought maybe she could be. She could rise to the occasion. But the bigger issue for her was, if I don't get the job, I don't think my ego will allow me to stay there. and I really kind of like where I'm at. I'm like, well, they have it's called EMDR therapy for your ego thing. But let's work on this job thing. You need to go after it. Assess, where are you at? Figure out what your gaps are. Show up to that interview with the confidence that they expect you to have, the experience that you've already had. Let's just own your power here. She went after that job, and she got that job, and she is here in the room today as a boss bitch. You want to stand up? You want everybody to see you? Laura in the house! Laura owning her power. Laura and I have stayed in touch over the past couple of years. I walked in today and I got like tackled. I thought it was Krishna, but it wasn't, it was Laura. And yeah, you're killing it, you're crushing it. I cannot wait to see where you go next. Assess, alter, and act. There was a point in my career after I had moved my family here, killed myself, gained 30 pounds, lost 30 pounds, worked 80-hour weeks for a time. I looked around and I was like, wait a minute, every time the CEO needs somebody to take on innovation, sustainability, employee engagement, whatever, he turns around and Mikey will lead it, Monica will do it. So I was taking on all of this like heavy load. And all of the dudes around me had a senior vice president title. And I realized I'm vice president. I should be a senior vice president. So as chief of staff, my CEO wasn't in the office a lot. I would meet him on the road. So we were going to I don't even know what city it was, but I remember distinctly the bar. We were both going to be at a meeting. I had sent him the punch list of things I needed him to decide on. We needed to talk about all of that good stuff. And we met and we went through that list, about an hour-long meeting. And at the end, I said, I have one more thing. He said, what is that? I said, I'd like you to make me a senior vice president. And I went through kind of the reasons that I thought I should be. I'm smarter, better, harder working than all the guys. That was a joke, kind of. So he looked at me and he said, oh, you know, Monica, I feel like, he was taken aback. He said, I feel like when you put somebody in a role like that and you give somebody a title like that, you want people to say, it is about time, not, is she really ready for that role? Like, wow, I wonder. I'm like, what? I was like, I shrunk inside of myself, and I'm not a shrinking kind of person. And I was a mix of sad and mad. And I walked away, I went to my room, I called him some names, and then I went back to work. And then about a week later, I went to him and I said, I need to know what it is that it will take for me to be a senior vice president. I was in that, assess where I'm at. Like, what am I missing? Why don't you think? And he gave me some answers. Everybody's got to work on themselves, right? There was probably some truth to what he said. At the time, I probably thought it was bull, but there was probably some truth. And I went to work. And about 9 to 12 months later, somewhere between that 9 and 12 months, when we were at annual review, I brought it back to him. And he gave me that same line about, well, you know, you want people to think. And I said, I've never been qualified or prepared for any role you've put me in, and I've always risen to the occasion. I was prepared this time. I acted on all the work that I had done on myself, and I was not going to let him deny that for me. And I got that job. So assess, alter, and act. It wasn't a gift. With that title came more work, so you can actually work 85 hours a week. Just kidding. Thank you, thank you. No, I owned my power, but I also did the work on myself, right? The secret to life is to fall 7 times and to get up 8 times. You hear my diet story, or my fitness journey is what I call it. How many of you have declared on like a Friday or Saturday that Monday you're gonna start a diet? Before Wegovy and Zepbound, right? We did it Monday. No, we're not gonna start now, we're gonna start Monday. So what I would do is on Sunday, I'd get a pizza, I'd get some wings, I'd have some ice cream. If you're gonna have pizza and wings, have ice cream, why not? Beer. I'd gorge myself. I'd wake up on Monday, and I'd have my oatmeal. I'd skip the brown sugar, I'd skip the cream, I'd skip the craisins. At 10 a.m., I'd have my 12 raw almonds that I had carefully counted out. There's some sisterhood in here. Between like 10, when I had my almonds, and 1, the world blew up. Like there's a crisis, there's a dryer fire in a plant in Portales, and I'm running around, the CEO needs something, the New York Times is calling, and I am starving, it's 1 o'clock, and there's 1 bean burrito left in the cafe, and I eat it, I'm like, shit, I was on a diet! 9 times out of 10, when that would happen to me, I'd just go home and have a pizza again. Sarah Blakely was met with resistance time and time again when she'd go to manufacturers with this idea that she had. But because she had failure reframed for her as a child, she knew not to order the pizza after she fell off the bandwagon. She got back up and she dusted herself off. So today I want you to leave with the commitment that you've made to yourself, that thing that is living here. And consider if maybe it's time, if you give it a little attention, you water it, you've texted me and I'm gonna ride your butt until you do it. Consider if it's time for you to own your power and to go and do. Thank you, everyone.